everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something pretty interesting. It's, it's the importance of old animals.
Yeah, it's something we don't often think about.
Right. We're usually drawn to the cute babies, the little fluffy ones, but
Exactly.
we're basing this deep dive on, it's a scientific review article called Loss of Earth's Old, Wise, and Large Animals.
Mhm.
It was published just last month in Science, November 2024, and it really goes into the impacts, like both ecological and economic, of losing these older, larger animals. Ready to get into it?
Definitely, let's do it.
All right, so the article starts by challenging this idea that old age equals decline. Once an animal hits a certain age, it's all downhill from there. Have you ever thought about how older animals might actually be more important than the younger ones?
Well, it is interesting to think about it that way. We always say with age comes wisdom. Turns out that's true for the animal world, too.
Mm.
Especially in species that live a long time, older individuals, they become really important for the survival of the whole group.
It's not just about physical strength anymore, then. It's about experience and knowledge, huh?
Yeah, exactly. The article uses this term storage effects. It describes how older animals contribute to population stability through their accumulated experience. Think of it like a seasoned investor. They've seen all the ups and downs, weathered multiple market crashes. They know how to adapt. That knowledge is so valuable during tough times.
So give me an example. How does this storage effect thing play out, say, in the wild?
Sure. So imagine a herd of elephants during a drought. A severe one. The younger elephants, they might panic, but the older matriarch, she's been through this before. She remembers a hidden watering hole from a drought decades ago.
Wow.
She leads the herd to safety, drawing on knowledge passed down through generations. That's a classic example of storage effects.
So these older animals, it's like they're living libraries of ecological knowledge.
Yeah.
And their experience, it can literally mean the difference between life and death for the entire group.
Yeah, and this applies to, a whole range of species, from fish to birds to, like you said, elephants. Older individuals, they often possess this wealth of knowledge, things like migration routes, predator avoidance, even foraging strategies.
So if we lose those older animals, we're losing, generations of accumulated knowledge that can't be easily replaced?
Yeah, it's a sobering thought. And this is where it becomes relevant to, everyone. Even if you're not a wildlife biologist, if we want to manage fisheries or wildlife sustainably, we can't just focus on the young ones. We need to understand the role of those older, more experienced animals.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects, but there's another surprising finding from the research. It seems older animals often have higher reproductive success, and they even produce, get this, better offspring.
It is a bit counterintuitive.
Right.
We tend to think of reproductive success peaking in younger adulthood.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case.
So what's going on here? Are older parents just more experienced at, raising their young?
Well, there's more to it. The research suggests that in many species, offspring from older parents, they're just inherently more resilient.
Okay, I need an example. Something to really bring this to life.
All right, how about this? Picture a female Sebastes melanops rockfish. It's also known as the black rockfish. As she ages, she produces eggs that are packed with energy-rich lipids. Those lipids, they give her offspring this massive advantage. Larvae grow 3 times faster. And they can survive starvation twice as long as those from younger mothers.
Whoa, so it's not just quantity, it's quality too. Older parents, they're setting their young up for success.
Exactly. And this has huge implications for things like, overfishing, which often targets larger, older fish, right?
Right.
That can drastically reduce a population's ability to recover.
Right.
Because you're removing you're moving the super moms and dads.
The ones producing the most resilient offspring. It's like what? Taking the most experienced teachers out of a school.
Right.
The next generation misses out on all that knowledge and guidance.
It's a great analogy. It highlights the need to shift our thinking about how we manage and conserve these populations. We can't just focus on numbers. We need to consider age structure, too.
Okay, so I've got the storage effects and these superpowered offspring. But there's more to this. The article also talks about older animals as keepers of culture and knowledge. And this isn't just about mammals, is it?
No, not at all.
Okay.
You've got migratory birds like Caspian terns. The young ones, they learn these complex migration routes spanning continents just by following their experienced fathers.
Oh, wow.
Imagine that road trip. And there's evidence of cultural transmission in fish, too. It's not just instinct. They're actually learning from each other.
So younger fish following the older, wiser fish to the best feeding grounds.
Right. Or to safe havens, like an underwater apprenticeship.
So it's like we're saying when we lose those older animals, we're not just losing individuals, we're losing, well, a wealth of ecological and cultural knowledge that's been accumulated over generations.
Exactly. And that loss, well, it can have ripple effects throughout the entire ecosystem.
Okay, we've talked about the impact on individual animals and populations, but what about the ecosystem as a whole? How does losing those, the old and wise creatures, how does that affect the bigger picture?
Okay, imagine this. An intricate archway.
Hmm.
Every stone, it plays a role in supporting that structure. But some stones, they're just more critical than others. Remove a keystone, the whole arch, it becomes unstable.
Okay, I'm seeing where you're going with this.
Large, old animals, they often play those keystone roles in ecosystems. They have this disproportionate impact on everything. Food webs, nutrient cycling, you name it, even seed dispersal. Their disappearance can trigger a whole cascade of effects.
Throughout the entire community, like pulling a thread from a tapestry, the whole thing starts to unravel.
Exactly. And the research provides some really stark examples. One area is overfishing.
Yeah.
In many fish populations, the fishing pressure. It's led to a significant reduction in the average age of fish. This has cascading impacts on the food webs and, well, and the overall ecosystem health.
Can you give me a specific example how this actually plays out?
Sure. Let's say you have a population of cod that's heavily fished. The older, larger cod are, well, they're often the first to be caught. And those older cod, they typically prey on smaller fish, keeping those populations in check. But when the older cod are gone, the smaller fish, their populations explode. Then they might overgraze on certain algae, which can disrupt the whole food web, even lead to changes in the physical structure of the ecosystem.
So it's not just about losing the cod themselves, right? It's a whole chain reaction that can destabilize everything.
Exactly. And we're seeing these kinds of cascading effects in, well, all sorts of ecosystems. As we lose those older, larger animals, it's a wake-up call, We need to start thinking differently about how we value and protect these animals.
So what can we do? If these older animals are so vital, how do we go about protecting them? The research mentions longevity conservation. What does that actually mean?
Longevity conservation, it's a relatively new approach. It specifically considers age structure in conservation efforts. So instead of just focusing on overall population numbers, it's about making sure we have a healthy mix of ages within a population.
That makes a lot of sense, but what does that look like in practice?
Well, it could involve a range of approaches, things like age and size-based harvest regulations, or even, creating protected areas, specifically designed to, well, to safeguard those older individuals.
So giving those older animals a break from the pressures, letting them thrive. But what about populations that are already in trouble? Is there any way to restore that age structure?
That's a tougher challenge.
Yeah.
It often requires a multi-pronged approach. We'll dig into those and some real-world success stories in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, you've definitely got me curious. We'll be back soon with part 2, where we explore some solutions and what the future holds for these, well, I guess you could call them the unsung heroes of the animal kingdom.
Welcome back. We've been talking about this idea that, well, older animals aren't just over the hill.
Right.
They're like the VIPs of their ecosystem.
The unsung heroes, you could say.
Exactly. And last time we were talking about how losing those older animals can set off a whole chain reaction.
Yeah, it can really disrupt things.
Like even changing the physical structure of a habitat. It's pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
So now I'm really curious about how we can protect them. We talked about longevity conservation, but what does that actually look like in action? What's actually working out there?
Well, one approach that's gaining a lot of traction is creating what are called marine protected areas, or, MPAs for short.
MPAs, okay.
And they're specifically designed to protect, to safeguard older fish. So it's like setting aside these underwater sanctuaries, right?
Exactly.
Where those seasoned fish can just hang out and do their thing.
Yeah, pretty much. These MPAs, they restrict or even completely ban fishing in those areas, which allows those older, larger fish to thrive. And it's not just about protecting them, it actually benefits the whole ecosystem.
Okay, I'm following you. So walk me through how that works, how those benefits spread out.
Well, think of it like a city.
Yeah.
If you've got a really healthy, stable downtown core, the benefits kind of ripple outwards, right?
Right.
It's the same idea with MPAs. When you've got a thriving population of those older fish in the protected area, it spills over.
You mean like their offspring? or even the prey they help keep in balance, they start venturing out into the areas where fishing is allowed.
Yeah, exactly. And studies have shown this actually leads to bigger catches for fishermen in the long run. It's a win-win, you know?
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
A win for conservation and for the fishing industry. Do you have an example, like a specific MPA that's really doing well?
Yeah, there's a really good one called the Bowie Seamount Marine Protected Area. It's off the coast of British Columbia,
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah.
It's amazing, this deep sea habitat.
Yeah.
And it's full of just teeming with life,
Wow.
including lots of long-lived species like rockfish and sharks.
So picture this underwater mountain, right? And it's like a haven for all these ancient fish,
Yeah.
just cruising around, sharing their wisdom.
Yeah, I like that.
And since they established this MPA, scientists have actually seen like a huge comeback in the fish populations there.
Oh, yeah. Both in terms of, how many there are and how big they're getting.
That's awesome. So this isn't just some theory. It's actually working. Are we seeing this kind of thing happening on land too?
Yeah, definitely. There are protected areas being established on land too, to to safeguard older individuals and other species
Right.
like elephants or large predators.
It's like we were saying before about those elephant matriarchs. Protecting those older females, it seems so crucial for the whole herd, really.
Absolutely. Remember we were talking about those storage effects.
Right.
Those older females, they're the ones that, they hold all the knowledge about where to find water during droughts, how to navigate, how to avoid predators. It's like they're a walking encyclopedia of elephant survival strategies.
That's a great way to put it.
And it's not just the knowledge, it's their role in maintaining the social structure of the herd, the cultural transmission.
Right. Keeping everything stable, teaching the younger ones the ropes.
Exactly.
Okay, so protected areas are definitely important.
Yeah.
But what about those populations that are already struggling, even if it's not from fishing or hunting? How do we help them?
That's a tricky one. Sometimes we have to get more proactive, like translocating older individuals from healthier populations. Yeah. To bolster the ones that are struggling.
So it's kind of like a carefully managed relocation program.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty complicated.
It is. It involves actually capturing animals and then moving them, which, you have to be really careful.
Right. You don't want to cause more harm than good.
Exactly. So you have to consider the welfare of those animals and what the impact might be on both the original population and the new one.
It's a big decision for sure.
It is.
What other kinds of strategies are we using to restore that age structure?
Well, we've touched on this a bit already, but setting those age and size-based harvest regulations. So instead of just saying, you can only catch this many fish, you manage for which fish are taken.
Okay.
So by limiting the catch of those older, larger individuals, you give the population a chance to recover its age structure.
So you're not wiping out all the wise elders. You need those experienced mentors to guide the next generation. Okay, speaking of those wise mentors, I'm curious, what's the role of research in all of this? How are scientists learning more about why older animals are so important?
Research is huge. One area is population dynamics. So scientists are studying how that age structure affects the whole population. How it affects its growth, its stability, even its resilience.
So kind of like a checkup for the whole population?
Yeah, you could think of it that way. And they're looking at how the loss of older individuals might affect the population's ability to adapt to different threats.
So like climate change or disease outbreaks or, habitat loss.
Exactly.
So are there any examples where research has helped us pinpoint those key individuals, the ones that are really, really important?
Oh, yeah. In some whale populations, for instance, researchers have been able to identify specific older females that are, they're like living libraries of knowledge.
Wow.
They know all about the migration routes, the feeding grounds, and protecting those individuals is absolutely crucial.
Because if they're gone, the whole population is in trouble.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about protected areas, we've talked about managing the harvest, and we've talked about research. What else is out there? Like, what are you most excited about when it comes to the future of longevity conservation?
I'm really excited about all the ways we're using technology, like using satellite tags and other tracking devices to follow the movements of those older animals.
So that's for things like whales and sharks and migratory birds, right?
Yeah. It's like we're giving those older animals a voice, allowing them to tell us where they go, what habitats are important, what threats they're facing.
We don't have to just guess anymore. We can actually see where they're going, where they're hanging out, where they might be in danger.
Right. And that's really valuable information,
Yeah.
especially when we're trying to protect them from things like, climate change and habitat loss.
Okay, so technology is helping us track their movements, but what about understanding, the age structure of a population? Are there any cool technological advances there?
There are. So in the past, if you wanted to age an animal, you had to capture it, tag it, which is stressful for the animal,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
But now there are all these new genetic techniques that are letting us study age structure in a, well, in a much less disruptive way.
Okay, so how does that work?
We can actually take like a scale or a feather or even, feces and extract DNA from it and use that to estimate the animal's age.
Whoa, so no more capturing and tagging every single animal?
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's got to be a huge relief for the animals. What kind of information can you get from that DNA?
Well, you can see how many old animals there are, how many young ones, and that helps us understand how things like fishing or hunting are affecting the population.
It's like getting a demographic report for the whole species.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
And, the more we learn about this, the more we realize that these older animals, they're not just important as individuals. They're vital for the whole web of life.
Mm-hmm.
And when we lose them, it can have a really big impact.
This whole deep dive has really been eye-opening for me. It's awesome to see that there are so many people out there that are, working hard to protect these animals.
Oh, yeah?
But I'm wondering, what can our listeners do? What can we do to help?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll be talking about in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, can't wait. We'll be back after a short break.
Welcome back. We've been on this deep dive into the world of old animals, and honestly, it's been pretty amazing, learning about how important they are.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Totally. And last time we were talking about all the different ways that people are working to protect these elders of the animal kingdom.
Right.
So now I'm kind of thinking, okay, what can we do? What can our listeners do to help out? Well, I think one of the most important things is just staying informed.
Yeah.
Reading about these issues, learning more, following those conservation organizations that are doing such great work, and then, sharing what you learn with your friends, family, on social media. The more people that understand this stuff, the better.
It's about raising awareness, right? Getting people to see that these older animals, they're not just, past their prime, they're actually vital.
Exactly.
And there's got to be more we can do than just, reading about it.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. You can support those organizations directly, donate, volunteer your time. Every little bit helps.
And what about, reaching out to our elected officials, letting them know that we care about this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Advocate for policies that support sustainable fishing, sustainable wildlife management. Encourage them to, to create more protected areas like those MPAs we were talking about.
And I think we can make a difference with our everyday choices too, right? Like choosing sustainably sourced seafood or supporting companies that prioritize conservation.
Yeah, it all adds up. Being mindful of our consumption, thinking about the impact our choices have, not just on us, but on the whole planet.
This deep dive it's changed my perspective. I'm seeing the natural world in a whole new way now. It's amazing how everything's connected.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's so inspiring to see how many people are working hard to protect these animals.
It gives me hope.
Me too.
So as we wrap up, any final thoughts for our listeners? What do you hope they take away from all of this?
Well, I hope they come away with a sense of awe, awe and appreciation for these incredible creatures, and a realization that they're not just individuals; they're vital parts of a much larger system, and hopefully a feeling of empowerment that they can actually make a difference.
Beautifully said. And as we've been talking about protecting these animals, it's not just about conservation, it's about recognizing the value of age, wisdom, experience. Yeah. Lessons that we can all learn from, no matter what species we are. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of old animals. We hope you learned something new and that you're inspired to look at the natural world with fresh eyes. Thanks for listening.